124 totes. We expect to receive $12.50 a tote, but to use a very conservative number of $10 a tote, and it's easier for me to figure this, the $10 a tote number will reduce that $400,000 amount by $92,240. That makes the program a little bit more affordable in that we're going to get a grant from the state. If we purchase those toters, if the vendor purchases the toters, there's a tax obligation, what's called a sales tax at 6.25%. And to avoid that, because we don't want to pay tax at all, the town will purchase the toters and save that sales tax money. In addition to that, we will get approximately $12.50 a tote in return for each tote that we purchase. And that'll further reduce the program. So in year 2, we expect an estimated savings of approximately $300,000 to $400,000, reducing our total obligation for the program to a little over what we spent in the first override in 1991. Did a little research. So, I'm pleased to announce that we are going to be ready to award that contract to the same vendor that we currently have. That vendor is charging us $645,012 for recycling and trash. Those numbers have been reduced to $499,900, saving just on the transportation for recycling and trash $145,112. There's no calculation in relationship to what we're going to get back on the recycling end of it. So there's an additional $21,000 we're going to get back as revenue to the town. I think that going from $80 a ton to $66 a ton is going to be a significant savings. The other issue, and probably more importantly, from our perspective, the service level for the trash program will increase significantly. It's an automated system. There's one guy in the truck. There's going to be a front tote system. There were 2 bidders in the process that were very competitive. One was Troop, and the other was Waste Solutions. And in the end, when I met with both companies, I asked them to provide me with their best and last final bid price. And in doing so, I was able to squeeze both companies a little bit more, one obviously more so than the other. And for the benefit of the town, we are going to achieve a higher level of service for a lower cost. And in the second year, the $340,000 to $360,000 that we project to save in the program based on tonnage reduction and actual cost reduction, because right now, according to Waste Solutions, and this was a really interesting self-evaluation, they had said, after researching this program for 6 weeks, they said that this is the future of trash collection in the state, in that it is more cost-effective and more cost-efficient to perform. They pay such a high cost for workers' compensation that they pass that along to each of the cities and towns that they serve, which is 2. And as a result of that, they become uncompetitive in this process. So they want to now take this program to their second community, which is Marshfield. They want to try it on a exploratory basis. So the program works. It provides efficiencies. It's going to reduce our tonnage. If we kept the same system, there was some discussion about, well, what happens if we just keep the same system and capture those savings up front? Well, the savings are not there if you use the old system. So you capture less than you normally would, because you need a second person that you'd have to hire for the back of the truck. You wouldn't have the automated system process because the individuals can't pick up a 64-gallon tote and put it in the back of a truck. And so as a result of that, this program will be something that will guarantee that there will never, in my opinion, and I never say never in the public sector, but I've implemented this program 11 years ago in Mansfield, and we were discussing at that point of taking it out and doing a pay-as-you-throw. The board didn't want to do that. They wanted to keep it in the tax rate, and it has been in the tax rate, and it has been manageable for the last 11 years with minimal increases. So I'm looking forward to this program. We're going to start a little outreach. We're going to start education. We're going to start signing the vendor up. He's going to purchase the truck. We're in the process of purchasing the totes. And by July 1st, we're going to be ready to go. 2 weeks before July 1st, we will deliver our barrels to our residents. Those barrels will have the town seal on it, might have a picture of myself or the Board of Selectmen on it. But in any ways, it's going to have the seal, property of the town of Abington. It's going to have a number. It's going to have a microchip. That microchip is going to be scanned to coincide with the address of where the barrel is going to be residing. There's a 10-year warranty on the barrels. The individual who works for Cascade, who manufactures the barrels, is an Abington resident by the name of Andy Winowitz. So Andy's really excited. And to some degree, we're keeping some of the money local. And to a more measurable degree, we're going to end up with a program that's financially manageable. It's going to save us money. That money will help in FY14, the money we save, to help the school department and the town with its potential funding cliffs that we anticipate in FY14.
John, can you just briefly explain what the additional services are? You started down that road.
Oh, yes, the additional service, I forgot all about it.
No, you were saying, you started there, but you kind of...
Yeah, I know, I kind of got deviated. The additional services that were included in this are curbside collection of Christmas trees, which cannot be taken in the waste stream, and twice a year yard waste collection, which will directly reduce tonnage in the barrels. So there's going to be two, one in the spring and one in the fall. So in the spring, you can put all your bags out and your leaves and everything else, and they'll be picked up along with your brush and whatever else you have. Don't leave bulky items out at curbside unless it's myself or Mr. Franny. We'll both be picked up at curbside.
Kenny squirrels.
Yeah. But in Kenny, there will be no more squirrels in your barrels. And I think it's going to be a program that everyone's going to be proud of, and the town will gladly accept in approximately 6 months. So when we implement the program July 1st, I'll be taking a 6-month vacation, and after that, everything should be running as planned.
You did a nice job with that.
Yeah, you did.
It worked out pretty well.
If I could, A, congratulations, I think it was excellent. B, just as a suggestion, I think on the question of outreach, just as a benchmark to look at, I just, for Tri-Town, sent out a flyer to every postal customer in Weymouth, Rockland, and Abington, had it printed and mailed 40,000 pieces for $10,000. So I think appreciably, if you wanted to do an outreach to every postal customer in Abington explaining it, I think the actual cost will probably, obviously, far less than that.
And
it
in
may
our
be something
in this bid, in the contract, the vendor is responsible for those costs. That's also great. What I failed to mention is also we are requesting that the vendor have a magnet, a refrigerator magnet, that, to call for bulky item pickup and call for when your trash is going to be picked up and what hours to have your barrels out. And all of that information is going to be in the barrel when they're delivered. There's a hook on the inside of the barrel, and they can have an informational packet that will hang from that barrel. So when they deliver it, they open up the barrel, they have this information packet that explains the entire program, that gives them a magnet for what numbers to call, for emergencies and for general service. A complete explanation of the single-stream recycling program, what to do, what not to do, as well as where to bring your barrels out at curbside, what the issues will be in the wintertime. If in the wintertime you can shovel a little nook for your barrels, You can keep them at curbside, and they'll be put back in the same place that they're taken from mechanically. And the barrels won't blow. If you were out there today, I got hit by one of the, those little small bins. It was on the middle of 18, and I smashed it. It wasn't 18. Last week it was 18. I don't know where it was today. But I got hit twice with flying barrels.
Sure it was the winter.
I think they're after me as a result of the program.
Is that why you're going to the hospital tomorrow?
No, I'm going because I gotta get my back work done.
John,
Carrying a lot of weight.
I have a question. Sounds like a silly question, but I've been asked. Does the town have a say what color the barrels are?
Oh, we do. We're going with green. It's that famous color. It's like the green wave. But the tops are going to be different. There's going to be a green top for municipal waste and a yellow top or another top for, yellow top for recycling, so that the vendor, when he drives up, will know which to take. And the trucks have to be properly labeled as a recycling truck, Town of Abington seal has to be on it, or a waste truck, a municipal waste truck, which takes a solid waste. So if residents out there see them picking up recycling and putting it in the solid waste truck, it'll be easily identified. In addition to that, there will be a number and a truck number that they can call and report the incident.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. Abington's big on trash. It's always a hot button issue. There's been 2 overrides in the past 15 years or so for trash, I think. And I used to know what they totaled. I think it's 1.2, I think. 1.2. Something, it's
1.1.
550.
It's $1.2 million. And
I know where you're going.
It appears that the budget's going to be a lot less than that, maybe not the first year, but, well, even the first year it should be less than that. So I'd like to throw an idea out there that maybe we could use some of that extra money, because the residents did pay $1.2 million. They approved to raise their taxes that amount, and use that money for options, depending on what the board wants to do. But one option is to, the barrels, maybe spread the cost of the barrels out over 3 years. Possibly include things like a bulk item per month per customer, because there's a lot of additions that we're getting. Granted, there's the Christmas trees and there's the yard pickup, which is great because we've got a lot of complaints about the yard pickup. But Abington people have made sacrifices lately, you know, because they are, the barrels have got to go from 3 barrels down to 2. And they're also bulk items. Just last year, I think we started having to pay for bulk items. So that's another option. And the third option that I've discussed with one of the other members of the board, I think it's a great idea, is we're going to have to come up with a lot of funds in the next few years for the capping of the landfill. Well, possibly this extra portion that we're making sacrifices, less trash, saving money, maybe that portion could be put aside for the landfill, and it wouldn't be such a big chunk at once. So that's just some ideas I think we could work on and discuss.
I think we can spend that money 6 ways to Sunday.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But it is a savings, and I think that when you look at the town's duty and responsibility, it is to find these saving mechanisms. And when I first came here, that was the first thing I looked at and said that was like low-hanging fruit. I didn't realize just how high-hanging it was to get to the point where we were able to do this. And I think that as a result of that, there are some savings. And, you know, there are a lot of programs that I can tell you potentially that are going to be cut in the future if our revenues don't improve. And so we need to plan that out as to how, and of course your input and how you want to do it is going to be very important as to how we end up spending that extra surplus in FY14. Because we're not going to have much of anything in FY13.
Are you anticipating anything for FY13?
No. But the program does not necessarily need to be monitored, and, you know, because it's 2 barrels, there's nothing to monitor, and it's automatically picked up. There's no one's getting extra trash picked up or not picked up. So there's a couple of things I have to go back to the Board of Health with, but I sent out the award letter today as the Chief Procurement Officer. I CC'd the Board of Health on that, just to keep them in the loop as to what's been going on. So.
Just one quick question on the PEC agreement. Does Do those funds include the mitigation money going out, or is that?
Yes, the net, that's the net funds.
So that's the net funds to the town?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And incidentally, because the PEC really enters into the agreement with the chief administrative officer and, town manager, more or less. The PEC requested that the board sign it as well. So it'll be available for your signature.
What was the number, John? The annual savings for the health plan design?
The annual savings is $342,846 minus $21,840 for the management of the third-party benefits to manage the $114,000.
Do you have the agreement now?
So it brings it down to 321,006, and then we divide out 6634, 211,863.96 goes to the schools, 109,142.04 goes to the town. Yes, I do have it, as a matter. You can just sign below. I haven't put the numbers in. I put the lines in, but if you can write straight, you'll be fine.
You're asking a lot.
Yeah.
And, Another thing, Your Holiness,
They have it.
we need to make a determination as to, it doesn't have to be tonight, but prior to town meeting, what date we would adjourn to for town meeting.
Yeah, there was 3 dates I saw.
Those are two monumental tasks, believe me,
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
to get done. And I went from
That's why I
6.5
have
to
one.
5.7. And I'm shrinking every year. It
You want
wasn't
everybody's
easy.
signature on this?
What's that?
You want everybody or just the chief?
Oh, no, everyone's signature, absolutely. It's not valid. And that's all I have for my town manager's report. One other thing, we're beginning the KVS implementation process, and I just wanted to bring everybody up to date that the KVS process is implementing April, and will be live immediately upon implementation. I must also report to you on a personnel matter that the individual that, the network administrator that the town has hired has decided to move on. And much to my dismay and the issues, I think, he kind of summed it up to me, and he said to me, I thought that when we were hired to work in this town, that we were hired to make decisions that were going to benefit the town as a whole, and it's really too political here. And so I asked him to provide me with some examples, and he did, which I'm not going to disclose at this point. But I will say that I share in some of his feelings about that, and those are things that we have to work on as an administration and certainly as a town, and we intend to do so. But Henry was a very good addition to the town. He is going to see the implementation through for the KVS and for the fire department software, which I think is going to be very important for us. We expect to be hiring a town accountant no later than the beginning of the fiscal year, so we will have that issue addressed as well. And the problem that we have with our financial software reporting package is we don't really have one. And so, as a result, the type of transparency that we're hoping to achieve from a financial perspective will not be achievable until we have that financial package in place. The reports that we'll be able to run and the budget that we'll be able to keep a very close eye on is necessary with this financial software package. We have been running COBOL all these years, and this will bring us to a Oracle backbone with a multiple user interface up to 50 people can be on the system at the same time. Every department head will be inputting their own data, including their budgets, which currently is now transmitted to them paperly through the paper process, with the exception of the highway department, and then from there, it's input twice. So it's input one, it's done by paper, and then input by hand by the accountant's office. And we need to be working smarter and certainly not harder, and one of the ways in which we can achieve that is through technology. And it's something that I know we need to do. I have been firmly entrenched in making sure that we do this. And I think, whether we do it, if we don't do it now, we're just putting off the inevitable, and we've already committed and we signed the contracts to do it. And so whether we have an accountant now or later, I think what's going to happen is that the new accountant will come into a system that will be fully integrated, and that individual will be able to implement policies and procedures and financial management controls that are necessary for his or her job, and to do it properly. So,
Getting back to the IT director, John, is his resignation effective on a particular date, or is he just going to wait until the
we're
regionalized
working on
dispatches?
that date as we speak.
Are you going to repost that job?
Yes.
Do you anticipate filling it before he leaves, or at least being somewhere down the road towards filling it?
We're talking right now with the school department to help us out in the interim again. We do have money on the table at this point that we didn't have last time, and we may be able to share resources and configure this position a little differently than we did initially. And if we can, it would probably be better for us. As we look at these issues of consolidation and we look at how better we can deliver services without a higher redundancy and commitment of finances, this is an area that we may want to revisit more definitively with the school department, now that we have a budget for IT, that we could probably share those resources more succinctly than we were able to in the past.
Thanks.
Kenny?
I just have a couple questions on some of the accountant stuff and the KBS. Now, that's new financial software.
No, we currently have
We have it.
KBS, yes.
But it hasn't been implemented yet, correct? Or,
We have purchased all of the modules but never upgraded.
okay.
So we have spent all that money up front purchasing the modules, but we never spent the money to buy the Oracle background. So what we're doing is we're purchasing the Oracle background. We already have KVS. We can't implement the new improvements until we improve the backbone, until we go from Cobalt to Oracle. So that's like $15,000 just to do that.
No, but you said now. Now, it appears to me that, I'm not an expert at this, and don't take this the wrong way, but we're in the middle of the budget season. Would it be wise to wait until like the end of the fiscal year or after town meeting? I don't know, is this going to screw people up? Again, I'm not an expert, I don't know.
Well, actually, I've done a couple of conversions in my lifetime, and Kevin can attest to them. They're really not something you want to do. That's like going to a dentist and not having Novocaine for a root canal. It's that painful. But if we don't do it now and we wait till later, there's no better time than now, because the information that they're going to be converting, they already have. So they're going to be able to convert all of that information, and so that when we start the FY13 budget, people will be submitting POs for the first time. They'll be, and having them approved through a process that's accepted. Reports will be written that are meaningful in understanding. When you want financial analysis done, we can do it. We don't have the ability to do it now. And so whether we wait or we don't wait is immaterial to the fact that it has to be done. And the sooner we do it, the better it is, because we will then be able to use the system immediately. So people, once they're trained, will be using the system. So they're not trained now for a time that they're going to use it in January or July. They're going to use it the same day. And so they'll be able to close out the fiscal year sooner and more accurately, and be able to start the fiscal year cleanly in FY '13 with the system up and running, and that's our intention.
My other question was, the new accountant, you had a group, a search committee planned, I think?
Yes, and we're going to be implementing that committee probably as soon as we finish, now that I've got the bids behind us and all this other stuff, and getting the contractor hired for the arch, I can then spend some time putting the finishing touches on a job description for the town accountant's position that would then go to the Beacon and to some of the public financial management organizations in the state. So yes, that committee will be working on that at this point.
Anything else?
I spoke for an hour and a half.
All right. If you're finished, we can move on to selectmen old new business.
Do you need any other information on anything? I'm go on for another hour.
It said in your,
I got more
it
questions
said
if
in
you
your
want.
town manager report, on the agenda, you want to talk about the collective bargaining formation of a department head union?
Yes, and the last thing is that we received notification, which I believe is in your packet, and it's in mine somewhere, that the department heads have formed an employee association of managers, an independent affiliation and association of managers. And I would like to clear up a couple of understandings or misunderstandings. In this process, when a group or a committee or somebody decides that they want to form some sort of an association or a union, the administration has no say in that process at all, and can't by statute and by law. I had, during this process, I was approached by people on both sides of the equation, in favor and against, and I provided them with my opinion, but I have never been involved in any of the organizational issues, any of the meetings, any of the establishments of this. I have clearly kept away from it. My personal feeling, is that it's here. It's something we have to deal with. It's another union. Am I enamored by it? Absolutely not. But I think that unions are formed for a variety of reasons. In Mansfield, I came, for the first time in my life, I came to a town that had a department head union. It was called the Supervisors Union. And all the supervisors, from the library director to any of the department heads, including the veterans agent who was appointed by the Board of Selectmen in Mansfield, were all part of this, union. And statutorily, we can't take a position one way or another as an administration. That department, that group has to freely form. We can't have any influence in it. If we did, we'd be in violation of the statute. So I just want to make that perfectly clear.
Do we want to talk about this tonight? I have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
In terms of salary and benefits, the people who are in this union have different benefits, like whether it be, cell phones or whatever, little perks. Is everything going to be even now?
Well, that would be my intention. I mean, if I was to look at you as the collective bargaining agent for the town, one of the things that I would want to establish is equity and fairness across the board. Like if somebody's here 18 years and they got 6 weeks vacation or 10 weeks vacation, let's assume, and the rest of the contracts have 4 or 5, then there's going to be an effort on my part to streamline that, to make it comparable to the other contracts. Now, with respect to a supervisor's union versus the clerk's union, there are clear and distinguishable differences between the two as far as job responsibilities and duties and so forth. In this particular case, it would be the town's intention to preserve as much of the management rights as possible that kind of like evaporated in the fire union contract, where the fire chief can't write a policy without having it approved by the union, or a directive, which I think is ludicrous, and that's why we're going to arbitration with respect to the fire contract. So we are going to try to achieve as much continuity as possible. That has always been something I was very much in favor of, even when we eliminated the non-union contracts, because there was this disparity between the different contracts. Who had a 50% buyback upon sick leave or accumulated sick leave, who had 25, who had this. And so it was, a union will more streamline that whole process than where we currently are today. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it depends.
How about like a pay schedule? How does that, is it the same way as with a union? Is it steps and lanes and all that sort of thing with this?
Only if we negotiate it. I mean, it's something that we're going to have to sit down and discuss, collectively in executive session, I would hope,
Yes.
so that we don't completely give away our strategy to anybody. But at the same time, it gives us the ability to think clearly through and look at what pay scales are comparable for what you're doing, and what those pay scales would be.
Mike?
The personnel bylaw was actually in effect to take care of non-union employees.
Mhm.
Is it still necessary to have that, now that we have a?
I think so. I think it is, because I think
Well, who would it cover?
well, it would cover the non-union personnel, but it would also.
How many of those are
Much
left?
smaller group, that's for sure.
Yeah, it would be a much smaller group.
How much is much?
Well, we don't
probably
know
about 20.
Until such time as Labor Relations approves what their petition is. I think we can sit here all night and hypothesize. I think the bottom line becomes is that unless and until Labor Relations adopts the order based on their election and whatever they do, we're not going to know the answers to a lot of those questions. And I think as the process unfolds, we'd be in a position then to answer a lot of those through negotiations and what have you. But it's hard to say.
And and to pick up on what Kevin has indicated, labor relations is very, I don't want to use the word forgiving, but would almost bend over backwards to try to recognize an association or an organization or a union, because it's a pro-union state. And I think that, going to the labor relations and saying, we want to fight X, Y, and Z, it's taking money and wasting it in some respect. But there may be positions that we may want to, look at and say, well, we don't agree to this, or we don't agree to that.
How long does that process take, as far as labor?
Oh.
Either one of you know how far.
It could take me right up until retirement.
Well, it depends on.
It depends on when they
They'll
vote.
actually do an investigation, and they
Yeah.
will, if you go back on individual positions, they'll go back in, they'll look at the job description, they'll look at what actually happens, they'll interview a lot of people, and then make a determination down the end. So depending on the petition, depending on what you're looking to exclude, it could be lengthy.
Yeah. It
So
could
in
be,
that- in that period of time, what happens? There's still non-union
They
employees?
would fall into the personnel
Under the
bylaw.
personnel bylaw, which I guess is a reason to have the personnel bylaw.
right, but I do, and I would say that, to take any kind of action, as far as personnel are concerned, I think it would be more prudent for us to wait until the formation of the union before we do anything with regards to,
Because it
Yeah,
can be-
any kind of
yeah,
action.
Positively, because then it'll be viewed that you're trying to infringe upon their right to organize, and believe me.
well, that's why the issue of, in my involvement is clearly in violation in any way, shape, or form of the statute. And for me to be involved in that in any way is clearly something I actively try to avoid. And, if it's out there that I was involved in any way, shape, or form, that is absolutely unadulterated, incorrect information, otherwise known as misinformation that people seem to thrive on in this town.
Question.
Sure. You mind
What's
taking?
the statement at the, I know we didn't talk about money articles tonight. The statement at the bottom of Article
Henry, can you just
2.
come up here so people can hear?
My question is, I know we didn't talk about money articles tonight, but in Article 2A, there's a statement at the bottom of that explaining that positions were excluded from that article for purposes of this budget due to the formation of this group, when the group hasn't been formed and won't be formed until it's approved by the state board. And I'm curious as how that impacts this situation.
Well, let me, I'm glad you asked that, because some of the positions in this Schedule 2A,
Not the ones that are printed here.
the one in Schedule 2A, some of these positions have, the classification is, and salary plan is only available to those who are not part of any collective bargaining agreement. And so
Right. My point.
we would have to include them in 2A in order for them to get paid. So there will be an amendment to the 2A schedule when we get to it, to include all of the positions unless the association is formed by that point. At
So the
which
fact
point
that
we
we've
would-
distributed this warrant with this statement in there, does that put us in violation of the state law?
No, because, I don't believe so, but this was reviewed by council before the warrant was actually submitted. And I don't think it is.
It may-
Meaning that the administration has removed those positions, that will now be covered under a union or association collective bargaining agreement? Is that what you're talking about?
Right. If we don't know what position is going to be covered under that, and that determination is made, that final determination is made by the state, how do we pull those out of the warrant? And again, I know we're not going to vote this next week, but the fact that it's been distributed at $54 a copy, and maybe put us at risk for a claim or a suit. And I think this might warrant a further discussion with town council.
I think we can. I discussed it with, with council as to whether or not they should be in or should be out, and it really wasn't an issue that they were really concerned about, but we can check it again with them.
Can you do that, John, and get back to us on that?
Yeah. Because I think that we went back and forth with it as to whether or not they would be included or not included. The statement of whether or not they're going to be covered under a collective bargaining agreement would be something that would be negotiated one way or another once the state takes action. Because we could object, but to any of the positions that are in the union, but whether or not we're going to win on an objection is extremely problematic. And so the positions that, the department head positions, and some of the assistant department head people were pulled from there with the understanding that they would be part of that union. That was the group that was involved. Now, when you look at how the union is formed, let's say you had 15 people around the table, and 11 said yes, and 4 said no. The majority rules, the union is formed. And it's an inclusionary process, not an exclusionary process, which means that it's a right-to-work state, which means that with respect to the union formation, all or nothing, you're all in the union, regardless of how you feel about a union. Whether you voted as an individual in favor or not. So we took the privilege of removing those positions. But when we talked about it with council, it didn't matter either way. But we'll go back and confirm that.
Well, to Henry's point, if it does take a long process, then these folks who are,
Well, then we're gonna have to amend it
To
to
amend
include
it.
them back in the schedule.
okay.
If that's indeed the case, we probably have a handout ready to go, rather than have to get up on town meeting floor to, people writing in their booklets.
Well, once we get to that point, we'll have a handout that will show which positions are in, and they'll all be part of the bylaw by then, if we pass it.
Anything else? All right. Anything else under Selectmen Old New?
Two things, just quick things. We have 2 vacancies on the Conservation Commission that we're still waiting to have posted.
That's posted.
Oh, it is posted?
Yeah.
Okay. And the zoning board also?
That's not posted yet.
The zoning board is not posted yet. The conservation is posted, because I guess there was discussion on the zoning board as the member moving up, or at your last meeting, whether it was gonna be posted. I don't know that
We decided it was going to be posted.
you did decide it was gonna be.
Post it as an assistant or as a, how do you want to post it?
As a
I guess.
full
As a full
member.
member, I think that's
A full
what we said
member?
last time.
One full.
Was that for
But
the-
you appointed
We
one
haven't
of the
appointed anybody.
associates as a full member.
No, we did not.
Oh, you did
Okay.
not, okay.
Okay, so we need that, so I'll post that.
So you need to do a full member, and do you need to do an associate? Or you want to do the full member first and then maybe the associate later?
Depends. Right.
Okay.
But at this point, a full member.
Yep.
And then, I had one more. And then we need to also establish that ambulance billing policy. That-
I think we sent a copy of that
We got
to
a
you.
copy, but we haven't, so that should be on maybe
We'll put it
agenda
on
for
the
next
agenda.
week or the
Yep.
23rd or whatever, but,
Was this the hardship policy?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did get sent out, but it just, if we can,
Were there any comments about it? Do you want,
I don't-
and did anything need to be changed?
I don't know,
on it?
I haven't really looked at it all that
Okay.
closely, but.
I'm gonna have my lawyer look at it, Andy.
We have the potential of a Board of Health appointment too, is that correct? Or
Oh,
did
that's
that
right.
change?
You have a resignation from?
Yes,
I don't believe we've been properly notified though to follow.
I think the board has been. They, I don't know if they
We
took
didn't
any
get a letter,
action.
yeah.
They're supposed to notify us
Right.
of the vacancy. Okay. I mean, we all know it exists, but
Yeah.
I
So
think
when you gonna-
statutorily, not statutorily, but charter-wise, we have to be notified.
When you get
By
the
the-
letter tomorrow, when will you post?
Well, then we've got to go through that whole 30-day, 20-day, it's got to be more than 10, but less than 30, and,
Yeah.
you know, so
The window.
we'll have to figure all that
accept it at
out.
our next meeting and then the process would begin, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken,
Okay.
which would be Monday evening, right? Okay.
That's 6.
Oh, yeah, look at this.
What?
Are we meeting Monday at 6?
Prior to
Yeah.
town meeting?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Kenny?
Well, oh, that was, my things are just taken
And
care
then
of.
how about the next date before town meeting for the money
Yeah, we need to-
in the budget articles? Do you have a date that you've decided on?
Well, you know what, to be honest with you,
Sean Riley sent out an email with 3 dates.
No,
No, that's just a
that's
continue.
Continue,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's a continuation of the, I would rather get it over with. I'm hoping that the Senate, the House numbers come out soon, and I think once we get the House numbers, we'll be all set. I don't see any additional money. There might be a couple of bucks here or there. They might decide on 120,000 in additional dollars, taking some of their excess, quote-unquote, free cash and give it out to cities and towns. That will help a little bit, but, you know, I think, I'd like to get going as soon as we could, you know, on it.
So what would be as soon as we could?
Probably, if we could reconvene either just before or right after the election, I think we would wrap it up.
Well, why don't we say April, well, I mean, would April 23rd, if you check with the FinCom and the school to see if it's available, do you think, does April 23rd sound all right?
It's not after the election, but yeah, it's fine.
As long as it gives you enough time.
Yeah, exactly. And if FinCom feels as though they have enough time and.
Well, we're waiting until right after April, because I think that the schools are going to have a better idea what their special ed number is. They were at 800, now they're down to 400. There may be some number in between that. I don't want to go to town meeting too soon, but I don't want to wait forever because they don't think the numbers are going to change all that
So you
much.
would prefer May? You would prefer May?
No, I would
Oh, you
prefer,
would,
I
okay.
would prefer April 23rd, the
Oh, you
sooner
would,
the
okay.
better, yeah.
If that's the case, does the finance committee have to have their recommendations on the street 10 days before that? So that means they'd have to be ready on April 13th, which is
Well,
not
that's
that.
fine.
You gotta check with them and see.
Yeah.
Anything else under old new? Public comment? Public comment?
Move we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chris Prowl.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm all talked out.